Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of TCS Student News. I'm Salma, here with
Ronan. Let's get right into the news.
The Trump administration is proposing a new regulation that will make it extremely difficult for many immigrants to come to the U.S. or receive green cards. The current public charge definition is so narrow that the government almost never rejects applications on those grounds. But the Trump administration is giving it a different meaning. It will require a far-ranging inventory of an immigrant's history and economic prospects. It will give enormous discretion to U.S. citizenships and immigration services officers to reject an immigration application for admission or for a green card because the officers feel like the immigrants' families aren't making enough money to support a large family. The government looks at public benefits an immigrant has already used or is likely to use. It would include Medicare Food Stamp Section 8 and housing benefits and subsidies for low-income earners in Medicare Part D. Using those benefits wouldn't automatically disqualify an immigrant from being able to get a green card.
In other news, China won't let a U.S. Navy warship dock into Hong Kong. This is due to rising tensions between Beijing and Washington over tax tariffs on Chinese goods imported into the U.S. The U.S. last week imposed sanctions on China after they bought arms from Russia. But on Saturday, China summoned the U.S. ambassador in Beijing and postponed a joint military talk in protest against the U.S. decision to sanction the Chinese agency and its directors for buying Russian fighter jets and a surface-to-air missile system. The USS Wasp is the name of an ambitious assault ship that had been due to make a port call into the former British colony of Hong Kong in October, but China had denied the ship to even call in this request. Requests for the military ships are required to visit Hong Kong. China has always carried out approvals case by case in ordinance with the principle of sovereignty and the detailed situation.
A conflict and political manipulation is making it even harder to fight growing outbreak of Ebola in the DRC. Congo's Health Ministry reports 150 cases of suspected or confirmed Ebola in the eastern part of the country. Militant and rebel groups have been staging attacks in the area for years, but they are starting fighting even more, making it even harder for the 2-month-old outbreak. It also made it harder for the aid workers to reach people they need to test or to treat for Ebola or to vaccinate them. The people are fleeing in many places, and the outbreak could easily spread to neighboring Uganda. This is the second outbreak of Ebola in the Congo this year. It infected 53 people and killed 33.
Common weed killers might be harming honeybee populations. Glyphosate is leaving honeybees more susceptible to infection and death. Glyphosate is a herbicide, and it is one of the controversial active ingredients in popular bee killers such as Roundup. Bees that came into contact with the herbicide in study had lower levels of healthy gut bacteria that helps digest food and ward off sickness, and were more likely to die of pathogens. About half of the healthy bees survived when they were introduced to the pathogen. Honeybees are so important because every 3 bites of food we eat is a result of pollinators like honeybees. This spreads to crops like blueberries and cherries. About 90% of crops depend on pollination. Honeybees are important to farmers. Farmers often also have honeybee hives transported and placed on their farm to provide pollination for their crops.
Let's get into some TCS Student News. Last week for our conversation we had Imani Yasin as our special speaker. She talked about her childhood and her hardships living in Baltimore. She also talked about her music, and she also talked about her sexuality that affected her music in a good way.
Also, thank you to Craig's mom for buying us pizza. Even though she was sick, she still helped provide lunch for that Friday.
We would like to also thank Ms. Nick Meyer, Ms. Peg, and Ms. Tina and Mr. Russell for providing lunches throughout this week.
We would also like to thank Cameron's mom for donating snacks such as Pop-Tarts and other goods to the pantry for us to eat on breaks.
Lastly, we would like to thank Claude and his dad for installing a new dishwasher and a water heater in the second floor. We really appreciate the hard work you guys put in.
And that is it for this week's TCS Student News broadcast. We hope to see you next week.